traversing the strange world with peace and toodles. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Traversing the Strange World with Peace and
Toodles. That's me.
And, for the very first time ever, Mr. Steeley Sawyer. Say hi to everybody, Mr. Steeley.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Steeley, he's a long-time friend of mine. We have a couple things in common in regards to our past. We both attended that church that I've talked about before that was a little culty, but you can, that's just my opinion. You know, you can come to your own conclusions on that. And we were also both homeschooled. At least, how long were you homeschooled for?
I was homeschooled all the way through.
All the way through, just like me.
Yes.
Was that your choice?
Yeah, because my mom, as my other brothers got older, gave them the option if they wanted to go to high school. So I think 3 of them went through Lakeland.
Okay, all right. It was not my choice. I would have chosen otherwise. But
I think in hindsight, more structured school would have been better for me as well.
Yeah, for me it was kind of just throw me in a room with my book and I kind of had to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think like my wife was able to get like scholarships and and I was like, man, and when I did a few general studies classes, I really buckled down. I was like, oh,
was Stephanie homeschooled too?
No, she was public school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Private school.
Oh,
Heck yeah.
All right. Well,
Nothing but unfulfilled potential here.
Oh yeah. You went to Lake Area, right?
Lake Area Christian School.
Lake Area Christian School.
Out there by the Amigo campground.
That's right. That's right.
I played some basketball there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I played some basketball middle school.
What was the
Didn't take it anywhere.
what was the name of the homeschool organization for sports?
I think it was MCE or Michiana
Yeah,
Christian Educators.
MCE, we played games against them.
Oh man, I wonder.
Probably slaughtered them every time, if I remember right.
I don't know. I only played a year or two because we didn't get a lot of wins, so it was.
I left and went to a public school afterwards just because of sports, because they didn't have anything.
A lot of short white kids.
Point guard, bro. I got all them 3-pointers.
So this is our first segment of the show: ponderings, announcements, etc., etc. I would like to give Steeley a little bit of opportunity to just kind of give his origin story, just where he's coming from philosophically, and just kind of the important things he'd like to share with y'all.
Sure. I will try not to make this take too long. No.
You got 10 minutes.
Okay, I think I can do it under that. So, like, growing up, I always grew up in, like, a Christian household. My parents both were saved pretty young before I was born. And, like you said, the church we went to is what ended up becoming the more questionable church. But for us, it was kind of like a slow burn since the church literally evolved into that. I also wasn't really of the age I wouldn't say I questioned a lot until I got a little older. And things weren't too tumultuous for the first couple years.
Right.
What's some of those things you started to question?
For me, it ended up being, I saw a lot of families coming in who would have different theological takes or just takes on what we were studying, being like the Messianic or the Hebrew roots.
The people.
Yeah, the people. They shall not be named. Yeah, that was.
That shall not be named among us.
But it really was like that. It was like if you came in, there was kind of a posse of people that would, I don't want to say,
vet them,
yeah,
maybe?
that was what I was going to say, though. They would like vet you, and
see what they're made of, like philosophically, and
yes,
like,
Make sure you're not better than them.
Yeah.
Making
I
sure
think it's,
wolfing getting through the door.
Right. I think it was they had to keep the echo chamber secure, so
Yes.
it was.
Yes.
But I guess what made me start questioning stuff is as people would leave, or nobody was like ever explicitly told to leave, but it was often.
Phil was, I believe.
Oh, maybe that I couldn't remember with him. It was.
You guys remember Phil Brothers from previous episode? Shout out to Phil.
Phil Broski's.
Phil Brothers Journey Podcast. Check it out.
Oh yeah, I forgot he has one too.
Yes.
But yeah, a lot of it was like more psychological, sort of like making you feel outcast, I guess, or kind of the black sheep.
Sounds like the
Didn't
government.
Yeah,
didn't
true.
Pastor won't say his name, but Pastor didn't he like when we were like teenagers, didn't he like approach you for wearing like band t-shirts or something at one point?
Oh my gosh, I've thought of that a lot of times.
They were Christian bands too, right?
Yeah, like
You heathen.
I know,
Like Devil Wears Prada. the
You guys
classic
were talking about Disciple, and like I saw them
Yeah.
multiple times at like
Heck
Pro
yeah.
Life Music Festival, and yeah, and I memory that stuck in my mind is like I think it was Old Navy or Gap had shirts you could get, and I got one that just said if it's too loud you're too old. And like and I wore it, and he like made a point to be like, well, that's awful rebellious, and I was like,
Rebellious.
what? Yeah, it
I'm
was
sure Jesus probably said that to the Pharisees.
like, you're grumbling too.
Keep that down.
Yeah, so I guess, and then also as people were either kind of told to leave, or once they had, they were slandered. And I've talked about this with my wife a lot, because interestingly, she also went through like a similarly culty church. Theirs was huge. I mean, they had like branches in Hawaii, California, Colorado.
Much more productive members in the cult than Messiah Fellowship. They closed in where like the other cult, they were a bit more ambitious, maybe. You know?
Yeah, she was telling me like, the money that was in those
Oh, wow.
places, and I was like, well, they were making what was it? It was Living Word, I think. John Stevens, I think, is the pastor. Anyway,
Beware, little children.
yeah, don't she? I mean, we
Careful
found
speaking those blasphemous names around here.
it's true. It's gonna be like Voldemort. Something's gonna pop out. And
We're gonna open the gates of hell. Release
yes.
something that we can't send back.
It's
Cthulhu.
true. Don't do that. No. But yeah, that is definitely when I started questioning, because it didn't make sense to me that essentially we were backstabbing, or like honestly sometimes lying about people, when in my mind
They were usually like people who were also like Messianic Hebrew roots people, just with like
yeah.
philosophical leanings slightly different sometimes, right?
Yeah, oftentimes I would say they lean more to emphasis on like Jerusalem and Israel.
Maybe a bit more of a Jewish approach.
Yeah, and it was again of the like hypocrisies and stuff.
Pastor is a real anti-Semite in my opinion.
I've yes, I've had discussions where I'm like, he might not be saying one thing, but you're saying something else. Like, but yeah, it didn't make sense in my mind. It's always been like, if we're supposed to be doing unto others as we want to be done,
Yeah.
or treating others, then it didn't make sense that because of that parting, we would now like throw them under the bus and literally lie or try and slander them.
I remember one time a guy, he was a father of a family. He got throat cancer. Maybe you know who I'm talking about. I won't say his name.
I'm trying to remember. I think so.
Yeah. He got throat cancer, and I was talking to somebody from, I think it was your brother, and he was saying that he was talking to Pastor Ron about the fellow that had left years ago, and now he has throat cancer, and his approach was that, well, he spoke lies against us, so maybe that's why he's getting the throat cancer. He said that.
Yeah, that was the thing of like offhandedly like proclaiming judgments, and then like because the way I see it is bad things are going to happen to you in life more than likely, And I don't think you want that shoe on your foot of people pronouncing that that's like.
Heard stories of people who had left, who would go and ask for prayer, and they would basically get vetted and asked, like, have you sinned recently that this may be God's punishment?
Right. I had the same experiences.
Same
and
experience,
okay. That was as I was like actively there too. It was more like keeping tabs on you, right? And if they could keep dirt on you too, it was sort of like leverage. So and I've talked also.
Well, still, you struggle with this. You know, your judgment isn't.
Sounds like Catholics too.
It was a lot of like psychological warfare, and the irony I found was how much psychology was preached as something to not learn about. And I was like, well, of course we wouldn't want that being learned because that's what you're employing.
All your tactics are going to be revealed if people start researching the same
All his
sources.
tricks would fall out of his sleeve.
Yeah. But yeah, like, you know, one-on-one lunches were often like, you know, to try and do that. And then it would be like, so, you know, what's going on? And
and they would be like vehemently against people going to outside church, outside, like, because in the broader Messianic movement, it would be really normal to like go to this person's church or this person kind of church hop, you know, and because like a lot of them met only like first and second Sabbath or first and third Sabbath of the month, so we would go and visit other ones. But when we started doing that and we were still attending Messiah Fellowship, Pastor Ron, not Pastor Don, Pastor he started having me come to his house and do like help with like, you know, yard work and stuff. And when I would be working, he would like ask me questions about these other churches and what are they teaching, and he was trying to get the dirt.
Yeah. No,
you gotta get that new steamy gossip.
Yeah, I think it's very true. But yeah, so I guess when I actually left, though, was at the time I didn't date much through high school. Actually, I really didn't date at all. And then I met somebody online.
Likewise.
Yeah, homeschooling, right? No,
we were allowed to court, but we couldn't. Dating was of the world.
Yes, exactly.
That's not strictly Messianic. The churches I grew up in were like that too.
Oh yeah,
you could not date, but you could court though.
Yes. I think the intentions are
it's a big difference.
similar, right?
And that's pretty. The term courting, that's pretty open for interpretation.
And
like
I think
you can't ask somebody on a date to go, you know, eat and watch a movie, but you can say, hey, do you want to come watch a movie with me and eat, you know, get dinner and stuff? And if anybody asks you, you're courting, but it's not a date.
They like using different words because it's like they've been revealed the good knowledge, the good stuff.
Right. I think too on that note is courting typically involves having like a chaperone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or I.
Oh,
you know,
you're right. You're right.
Normally, like a parent's gonna be alone, which I mean, I don't know. In my perspective, I'm not saying I would lean that way, but especially now that having my own daughter, it's like I do think about all these things I'm gonna have to do to like scare people. No,
the knife sharpening brings a whole new.
My running joke is I'll have an axe that hangs over the doorway, and it'll just say head chopping axe. So there won't be like, you know, specifics on. No,
you gotta have a stump nearby.
Yeah,
what could be blood, you know.
Yes.
Sit there at the table. Sit there at the table when your daughter's boyfriend comes over, just cleaning your shotgun.
Yeah, that's the classic. I think.
Something out of your tooth with the hedge.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yes.
So bunny trails aside, we've gotten him into this.
That's a heck of an intro.
Yeah, that's
still going too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the big thing for me, was I met a lady online and we started dating, but we had like an hour's difference. She lived in Grand Rapids and I still lived in Howe. Right. So we could only see each other evenings sometimes or like weekends. So I was starting to go on Saturdays up to visit her, but it wasn't a good relationship. Like I had a lot of subconscious stress, which that was a huge learning experience going through that. So I started having some like stomach issues and things like that, and I'll leave names out of this, but somebody was speaking to someone else that got around to me that were saying, well, he has been forsaking gathering.
I was just gonna say your stomach issues are probably because you're going to see this girl.
Right. So, and I knew like from conviction I had of other sins, or what you want to call it, that didn't resonate at the time, and so it frustrated me because I thought, if they're saying things like that in the open, then what are they saying behind my back?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I pretty much kind of tapered off. I think I maybe went down 3 times intermittent after that. And yeah, I guess some of like the pivotal spot would be after leaving that, I ended up breaking up, and that was very crushing. And that kind of is what led me into being I went through a long 8 months, I would say, of being like hyper introspective. So that's kind of where I started questioning a lot of stuff.
That's the unfortunate stereotype of most churches, regardless of the denomination. It's just the judgmental Christians that are going to look how you're living your life, no matter what stage or process you're going through. You say, oh, here's that sinner living in the world, doomed to hell.
Right. Yes. And on that note, like, to me, that was, the parable of walk a mile in another person's shoes. If you look at some of the historical context of that, it's kind of like going deeper of, it was a willing mile that you walked to, and so like I took that as my goal in life should be to try and understand where somebody is coming from. It's much easier to cast judgment when I'm looking at the surface, but if I understand somebody's backstory, like I can then empathize and be like, well, yeah, maybe I wouldn't do that, but I can see how you got there, or I can see why you're struggling with that.
Yeah, with that being said, of course, there's good churches out there. There's plenty of them where that doesn't happen, but it seems to be the stereotype.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it's still very common. That's, certainly my wrestle would be just how some of that's executed.
And you still you still enjoy church culture.
Yeah, we did talk about that. Like, we still go to church. I'm probably the more, like you said, I enjoy the church culture, especially having kids. It's nice to know, just maybe statistically, in a better demographic of, I'm not like... Nice
community centered around good values.
Yeah, like, there's definitely things, like, as we're going through that I'll explain, like, I have a different take on that, because my big thing, like, my wife and I, we've talked about that is, how are you going to explain maybe differences you have as you're there that are pretty against the grain? And I'll just be like, my big thing is,
This podcast is very much against the grain, Jonathan, anytime Jonathan gets a chance, he'll, like, if I'm looking something up or asking an AI something, he'll go on a whole sermon, basically, a conspiracy theory sermon, and I entertain far out ideas and concepts and stuff like that, and conspiracy theories,
They're out there.
They delve into that.
You're not going to wake up someday believing all of them, but once you go down the rabbit trail of one, you get introduced to the others, and you go farther and farther. It's like, shoot, man, they actually have a a good point.
Yeah. If I can interject one fringe one that I wanted to share with you guys, if I didn't know if you'd heard it before, it's one of my personal favorites.
Let's go.
Is, like, how we have unique gut microbiomes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so there's the theory that, like, our gut microbiomes are separate entities that we are living around, which actually isn't far off when you consider you have more gut microbiome cells than human cells. So the theory is that we were planted here, and the gut microbiome is its own entity that is now trying to populate other planets.
It's like a symbiote.
Which is why we're having the push to go to Mars. So the bacteria is trying to get us to go to another...
Is that when you get a gut feeling? It's the microbiomes, the still small voice of the microbiomes urging you towards destiny.
I don't know. There is a fascinating book I read called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Yes, and it talks about that. And after I read that, I started leaning into that more, and the results are pretty
The ability to just know something right away.
That's like
instinctually, rather than just through the research.
Maybe the muse is the gut biomes.
I know. I don't.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That example he gives in there is like this statue that was going around they found, right? That a lot of researchers were looking at and saying, this is authentic, it's real. And then finally got into the hands of this other researcher that has spent his whole life studying it. And he's like a master, basically, at spotting fakes and reals. And he looked at the statue and said, that's fake. And they're like, no, it's been verified multiple times. Like, this is real by a lot of different scientists. He's like, no, it's fake. I can just tell.
Yeah.
They're like, how do you know? I just know it's fake. I can tell by looking at it. It's not right. And then he gives, like, some basic explanations. And you're like, oh, maybe it is fake. Reevaluated it, and sure enough, he was right.
I don't remember. Yeah, I know.
That's like how the book starts. That's the first example in it.
Yes. And I don't remember what kind of statue it is. It was like some sort of ancient little, I don't remember what they called them.
Something that they were investing a lot of money in to sell it later, and turns out they went bust on it because they couldn't sell it because it was fake.
It was like $13 million or something, right?
Yeah.
They bought it and then got it verified or something. Yeah.
And you guys are relating that to the gut feeling of like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the book kind of extrapolates that the premise, like basically the thesis, was that right, of the book is like your gut oftentimes knows things before your conscious mind will relate to that.
To not discredit that gut feeling. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, also being like so good at what you do that you do have that just instinct nature to know what's
That is intriguing because lately when I've been talking about, like, I've been entertaining the idea of praying more, and there's times I feel something like this is like what I'm supposed to do. I feel like it's an answer to prayer, and I notice I feel it there. Mm-hmm. Like it's like something you feel in your body, and much more than ever before I've been when I talk about that. I'm like, I feel it in my gut. I literally touch my stomach. Mm-hmm. So, well, don't blink or blink.
Blink, yeah.
By Matthew Gladwell.
Malcolm
Gladwell. Check out the book and to fill in some holes in what we're talking about.
It's got a pretty little blue-colored cover. Cover.
Also, Libby, if anybody uses that, it's great for free audiobooks. You can use your library.
Yeah, your library card goes right in there.
You might have to wait, though. I've got some on hold that are like... I went through Michael Richards' book from Seinfeld, and I had to wait like 6 months.
The options are limited too. Like you look for a lot of titles and they're just not there. But for a free source of unlimited listening minutes to audiobooks, like you can find some pretty good ones in there.
Sounds like a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
Unlike freaking Spotify, stupid Spotify, you pay for premium and then you get capped on your listening minutes for books. Like, come on.
Right. Speaking of hell. We have one hell of a conversation for you guys today. Did you have anything that you'd like to share before we do that, Jonathan?
Me?
Any announcements or ponderings?
I have an announcement.
What?
If I didn't share it last week, one of our cats ran away.
I don't think you did. No, I remember seeing that cat vividly last time I was here.
Fear not, it's not Lucky. Lucky is safe and secure.
All right, so if
the
your
other
heart
cat
did indeed skip a beat and you were worried about that one cat, Lucky, on Instagram, you will continue to see posts by him looking funky and fresh.
Misty, our little girl, our little cat. We put it in the basement where it would not poop all over everything because it had been doing that. And apparently there's a crawl space that goes under the kitchen down there with a little hole that goes outside. And we didn't know it until the cat wasn't there. And then I go walk around the house. I'm like, maybe it escaped. And sure enough, I found a little hole. I'm like, no.
Misty did the Misty Mountain Hop.
That cat was so ugly, though.
She was a homely little kitty.
I do miss her, but maybe this is an opportunity for a better cat. A prettier cat.
Do you want my cat?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Wait, is it a black cat?
She's calico.
No, we want
Fluffy.
a black one. We want a little fluff ball that in the night all you see is the eyes.
So you can trip over it and step on it, kill it accidentally.
So it can cross our paths.
Send it across the paths of your foes.
Do you,
Chris,
do you have any announcements?
No, I don't have anything to announce.
Well, that means we need to get into this conversation.
Steeley was my announcement.
So today...
announcing him. So today...
we're going to talk about...
hell.
H-E double hockey sticks.
Gehenna. Hades.
Different ideas.
Yes.
Views. Perspectives. Beliefs about hell. Which... I have a question right off the bat for you to get this rolling.
Steeley has done an extensive research about hell.
Man,
yeah.
We've all entertained the idea. We've all entertained the idea quite a bit. Studied it throughout our studying of the Bible. But Steeley's went out of his way to study hell in particularly a hell of a lot.
I have tried. I really hope that comes through.
So, as the resident Christian in here, I have a biblical question.
Oh.
Is there a difference between what the Bible calls hell and Sheol and Hades and the lake of fire?
Yeah, I believe there is differentiation, which I can break down if you'd like.
I would love it because, I think the lake of fire is only in Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Hades is where Jesus went after he was crucified.
Hades is that's just the Greek term for hell. It's like the Greek idea of hell.
It's in Psalm. Well, why do we have multiple words for hell?
Hades in Psalms shouldn't be Hades. It should be Sheol.
Sheol is in Psalms too, but it's got both.
Hades should...
Go
ahead.
Yeah.
Get him.
No, can you repeat the question? It was, why is there differentiation?
Basically, what is the difference, if there is?
Between Gehenna and hell,
That's actually a good
our King James
jumping board to do it kind of chronologically, the development of it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because
our King James English has
Sheol.
those
Sheol.
Yeah, Sheol, hell, Hades, and the lake of fire. I think it's all in our canon now.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start there.
Yeah, the Old Testament would be pretty much strictly Sheol use, I believe.
Well, Sheol leading to resurrection eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and the concept of that's the one thing. There's a pastor I really liked a lot that I still listen to. I actually sent a video. Shane Willard.
Yes. Yeah.
He talks about the concept of words matter less than how we perceive those words functioning. So, there is a differentiation with Sheol, Gehenna, Hades, Lake of Fire are technically all different, but in our modern canon, it's all been kind of across the board labeled hell, kind of for, I think, simplicity and
we project modern day ideas of hell onto those when we read them naturally.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's the big one, because even when they would have been writing about it, the conceptualization wouldn't have been how we picture hell now, which so the beginning, Sheol was mostly sometimes translated the grave, or I think the shadowy realm, but it was looked at as sort of this.
Those who go to Sheol, they know God no more. God cannot see them.
Yeah.
It very vividly, seems to be describing the grave.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes called the murky place, or it was sort of
sometimes depicted as a dwelling place.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was more symbolic. Maybe it was more a poetic way of, in the you remember the Epic of Gilgamesh, talks about when Enkidu, when he dies, he's dwelling in the house of the dead, and it just talks about it being this cold, somber, bleak place where they just pretty much hang out.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, not to jump too far ahead, I think when the Greeks originally had the conceptualization of Hades, that's pretty much what it was at the start. It was sort of you went to, there was both Hades, the ruler, and then they kind of differentiated Hades as House of Hades. But it wasn't you're in torment. It was kind of, that's actually where everybody went. Yeah. And then
even Hercules is described to have.
Yeah.
Together.
And I think I was kind of rebrushing up on this, if I understood right too. It was sort of later Greek they sort of changed it to then where you had like the fields of Elysian, I think would be the pronunciation, and then Tartarus. So like Tartarus being, fallen angels, and the Titans went as punishment, and then Elysian was sort of like heaven, I think, but it was all still residing in Hades. It was like the four realms. So yeah, that would be the differentiation with, say, Sheol and then Hades. And then Gehenna was literally a valley outside of Jerusalem.
Valley of Gehenna.
Yeah, and I think sometimes called Hinnom. Hinnom. Yes, that was. Yeah. So
it was originally that was a valley that I believe it talks about in Joshua. It was Hinnom's Valley, and throughout the history of the Old Testament, it eventually becomes a place where like the Israelites sacrificed their children to Molech. Mm-hmm. It says at least they passed through the fires of Molech. Mm-hmm. There was, according to the Old Testament, lots and lots of sacrifice and pagan deity worship going on there. So at one point in the Old Testament, we actually can pull it up. The author of this passage, it talks about that place. Basically, I think it's Josiah. He does he's trying to do a reformation throughout Judea, throwing away all the idols, tearing down the high places, and they take it all to the Valley of Gehenna and burn it. Mm-hmm. So throughout the Old Testament, that it's referred to as like a refuse dump, a place where anything horrid, anything forsaken, they would bring there.
Go visit it.
I saw pictures. It doesn't look as bad as you think.
Hey, how long a bad place to be? Do you guys want me to pull one up on Gehenna or Sheol?
Either one. In the meantime, how about the Lake of Fire?
Yeah, so the Lake of Fire is only found in Revelations. Pretty positive on that. I don't want to say 100. No,
I think so. Like reserved for the demons.
Yeah, and I think the verbiage there is interesting because it talks about both death and Hades being cast into the Lake of Fire. So you have kind of that also, again, like a differential of if Hades is also being cast into the Lake of Fire, kind of what I think there's layers of what's going on there, if that makes sense.
So Hades is a holding place. It's not necessarily what you'd think of as hell itself.
Yeah.
Kind of like it's a house where you go. It's
yeah,
not a good place. But then that whole region, that whole holding area, that's then going to get thrown in the Lake of Fire. So is there any other beliefs that talk about different places like that?
This is talking about... they have also built the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or speak, nor did it come to my mind. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that this place shall no more be called Tophet, or the Valley of Hinnom, but the Valley of Slaughter. And I will make void the counsel of Judah and Jerusalem in this place, and I will cause them to fall by the sword before their enemies, by the hands of those who seek their lives. Their corpses I will give as meat for the birds of the heavens and for beasts of the earth. I will make this city desolate and hissing. Everyone who passes by it will be astonished and hiss because all of its plagues, and I will cause them to eat the flesh of their sons and of their daughters, and everyone shall eat the flesh of his friend in the siege. So
that's just a physical place on earth, then.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that was widely recognized by Israelites at the time. Is it's just it's basically like the spookiest, most terrible graveyard that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I heard, so for a long time I believed, or I heard the narrative.
Gehenna is what we were referring to.
Yeah, Gehenna.
Not the Lake of Fire.
Right. I could be wrong on this, but I think the narrative of Gehenna also being the trash dump outside Jerusalem.
Refuse, yeah.
They say, some people were saying that's where we get the wailing and gnashing of teeth was people who couldn't afford a burial plot would just kind of have to throw there, and there would be dogs there. Now, I think when I dug in that later, that wasn't maybe historically accurate, but it was a rabbinic teaching that gained popularity. But it kind of you could see it. The main concept was it was he was alluding to is it was considered a cursed place. Like nobody would live there, especially with the ties to like the Moloch sacrifices. And
because we'll see kind of in general broadly throughout the Old Testament, there is not at all really put an emphasis on an afterlife.
mm-hmm.
The end of Deuteronomy, which is kind of like, it's like the revelation of the Torah. Like at Revelation, we have like the big, if you forsake, you have the lake of fire at the end of Revelation where it shows the punishments for, and the book of Deuteronomy at the end of the Torah, we have God giving blessings and curses. He's naming out blessings and curses if you follow the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so to an Old Testament Jew, to an Old Testament Israelite, salvation was very much geared around not dying or not being killed by your enemies. The blessings of following the Torah were, having a good life and avoiding death.
Mm-hmm.
Death was seen as kind of just, you're dead. Just like in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is kind of, it's a good example of like what people were widely believing at that time. There wasn't much of a emphasis at that point, at least in the Middle East, in that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much of an emphasis put on an afterlife.
Right. Yeah, and I think, like in the New Testament, you start to see that with like the influx of like the Greek Hellenistic thought, right? Which I think also stemmed more from like Plato kind of giving soul, tying like you had more than just your physical body.
Yes. Because the Israelites of the Old Testament, your life seemed very much connected to your body. There wasn't really much thought about souls. There wasn't as much thought about a spiritual realm as much, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that seems
very focused around the physical world, blessings, avoiding death. There wasn't this developed theology around. Like it wasn't dualistic,
Like you're either righteous or you're unrighteous.
Well,
but
yeah.
What that leads to isn't talked about widely.
But also, aside from that, there wasn't a dualistic theology. There wasn't. God didn't have Satan, who he was battling against, and sometimes, like Satan in the Old Testament was more.
He was chilling with God sometimes.
Yeah.
So, I was like Hasatan and Job was more like. They said like an advisor to him, actually, not like
and a lot of scholars will say he was in that part of Israelite theology, as far as it had developed, he was part of the divine council.
That would make sense.
In Job, he's part of the divine council? Because I thought it talked about the divine council kind of being separate, and then Satan came up and talked to God there.
It was a day when the sons of God had gathered. And then it mentions Satan being there. But this is also all coming from like there's a whole theological background behind this, of Satan being or the divine council being turned to angels when in much older pantheons, belief structures, they were. The heavenly council, divine council, was a council of gods, like in the Canaanite belief system. Yahweh, they were all part of that pantheon. But throughout time, there was like a monotheistic reformation that I believe came to the Israelite theology, to where other gods existed, those gods were turned to angels, which were still high beings, but lesser high beings. And
formed from those clouds.
So, and then at one point it was each nation had a god, right? And Israel's god was Yahweh. But it eventually evolved to each nation had a guardian angel looking over it. Yes.
That is intriguing. I didn't know that tidbit. Like,
the frick's that got to do with hell?
Everything, because like the whole concept of hell kind of diverges from the idea that God has enemies.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who are outside of the will of God.
Mm-hmm.
People and beings. And not only are they have a soul, which wasn't an idea in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's ideas of an afterlife, though. Like Enoch was taken around all over the place, and he saw, wasn't it the spirit of Abel?
Yep.
On some kind of mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I think Enoch touches on technically realms of hell. Realms of
hell.
Yeah,
which
he talks about this big space that's just a field that's burning.
Yes.
That I think it says it's reserved for, I can't remember. It's been a long time since I read it.
If I'm remembering, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're fine.
If I'm remembering right, one of the weird theological differences in Enoch is that there was also realms, and like your duration in the hell there was pretty much just based on how bad you were, but it again wasn't infinite, I don't think.
Well, we also in the New Testament apocryphal canon we have the Apocalypse of Peter, where Peter he's seeing Jesus be crucified, and then above the cross there's a laughing Jesus, and Peter ends up talking to the laughing Jesus. It's like his celestials, his spirit, so to speak. I believe this gospel was very Gnostic, and so
sounds like it. Jesus is laughing.
Jesus is laughing because they think they're killing him, but Jesus was outside of his body,
right?
His spirit. So Jesus takes Peter through a guided tour of hell, where there are men who lied being hung from their tongues. Women who tempted men with their hair, being hung by their hair.
Gosh, dude.
As if it was their fault.
Yeah.
And then there are men being hung from their penises, screaming out, "I didn't think it would come to this."
Really?
Yes. It's there.
Because is it that one, or was it the Apocalypse of Thomas that almost beat out Revelation for being canonized?
That was Enoch specifically.
Enoch was
the Apocalypse
specific.
of Peter and Revelation, because I feel like at the end of the New Testament they wanted something to scare the hell out of people. Right?
No,
Right,
it was between Enoch and Revelation because they needed something to give you an idea of what the end times would be like.
Apocalypse of Peter was part of that as well.
Really?
I thought that was like, that was what
Revelation won by like 3 votes.
That's crazy.
Otherwise, we'd be reading like Enoch as the apocalypse predicting book instead of Revelation.
That would be
isn't that crazy?
I don't know. That's the thing that fascinates me, is if you think about if just like one book had or hadn't been in there, like where would we be at?
Right.
Dude, if Enoch was in there talking about like these layers of heaven and like going in depth about the angels that had the Nephilim with the people and these different regions.
The book of Enoch, you bring that up, that actually wasn't written, according to scholars, wasn't written till roughly 150 years before Jesus, like around the time of 1st and 2nd Maccabees.
Yeah, it came over here on a ship too that some merchant was just trying to sell it, and somebody's like, "Holy crap, this is Enoch."
No, I'm talking about not when it was discovered, but when it was written.
No, yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't a common thing that was even read.
Amongst the Ethiopian church, I believe it was.
Interesting. Which is confusing how the Council of Nicaea is the one that voted that book out of the canon, but yet you don't hear anything about it until like the 1700s.
So, interestingly enough, with the Book of Enoch, there is actually not a Satan. The angel behind, like, he's the bad guy, and this one is Samael.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the leaders of the angels that came down on Mount whatever to mate with the women.
Herman?
So there was
Horeb?
like...
I don't remember.
Mount Horeb?
I don't remember now.
What was like the what else had happened on that mountain before? Do you remember?
What mountain did Moses get the 10 Commandments?
Sinai.
No, not that one.
No, yeah, it wasn't that. Dang, I do think it's...
Mount,
there was something else. No.
That's where
I thought it started with an
Abraham attempted to sacrifice Isaac.
Oh. I wanted to say it's a Genesis story, but I don't.
It's mentioned in Genesis about the... I forget what it says exactly. It's just like 2 verses or one.
Ararat.
No, that's Noah's
Yep.
ark
It's a lot
landing.
of mountains. No.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, Genesis only says that the angels came down and mated with women and had giants called Nephilim as children that were the men of renown, heroes of old. And the only other time it's mentioned is when the spies are going out to spy on the land of the promised land.
Jericho?
I don't think it was Jericho.
Mount Carmel.
Oh, it was for the promised land.
Yeah, it was
Like
for the
you were
promised land, and they came back, and that's where they say there were giants there, and we looked like grasshoppers in their eyes, and so we were in our own eyes. And that's the only reference to them.
Numbers 16?
They also... No, that's Genesis, 6. It's, way early.
Where they're bringing back the report?
Yep.
It's going to be in Numbers. Hand me the Bible.
It's Caleb now.
I do think Isaiah is right. Genesis 6 is for sure the giants, because I had a book called Genesis 6 Giants, which I think in hindsight now is a pretty wacky book. But
because in Numbers is when they're sent into the promised land, and the spies bring back a bad report, and that's why they have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, because their report wasn't founded in faith.
I would be scared too.
But about Samuel, it seems that there was at that point in the Abrahamic Judeo-Christian thought process, it seems that as though there was kind of two different fallen angel narratives. There was the ones that they believed in Satan and him being the enemy of God, and then there was ones that believed it was more along the lines of Enoch.
Numbers 13, the spies. You're right.
The Enoch, that emphasized on a different, so it didn't have a Satan narrative. So that might have been why the church fathers left that out, because it wasn't
Mount Hermon.
Huh. Well, and even another interesting thing, our conceptualization of Satan being, typically it's actually translated like adversary or accuser, right? So again, it makes me wonder how much of that, it feels like it's trickled down over the years of evolving to kind of where we're at now.
Again, going back to Numbers, in Numbers when Balaam, the story of Balaam and the donkey, he was going to curse Israel, and it says God sent an angel to stand as an adversary before Balaam. The word for adversary there in Hebrew is Satan, Satan. So you'll never see Satan rebelling against God in the Old Testament. He's always working within the will of God. So between the times near the end of the Old Testament and the New Testament, there was a lot of evolution going on in terms of what Jewish people is, Abrahamic cultures, what they believed in terms of Satan. And I think a lot of that actually comes from a little religion that is pretty unknown today, but at the time was very massive. It was the religion of Emperor Cyrus the Great.
So was
Zoroastrianism.
Is Israel or Isaiah or Jeremiah, the bright and morning star? Was that referencing Satan or Lucifer, like the king of Babylon? Or?
So yeah, that's the passage that many Christians take to kind of give the origin story of Satan. Because the first time I read through the Bible, I was expecting to find a passage that's Satan's origin story. It talks about hell. You expect to find a place where it lays out the prophecies of the Messiah, and I expected it to be a lot more laid out in the Old Testament. But eventually I found out it's Isaiah 14. It talks about Lucifer, bright and morning star. You reach for the heavens and you're cast down. That's widely interpreted in Christianity to be talking about Satan, but in its context it was talking about Nebuchadnezzar. And actually the symbology that is used for Nebuchadnezzar reaching for the stars, reaching for the throne of heaven, that actually comes from a story called the Baal cycle. It's the story of Baal. Baal is killed by death, Mot, and Baal goes down to Sheol, to death. He's dead. He's in the grave. And Basically, the god who was like Baal's little toady sidekick tries to set in Baal's throne. He reaches for his throne, but he's too small of a god. He can't fill Baal's throne. And so there's similar language used in that story for that god reaching for the throne, but he falls off, basically, because he's too small. And so in Isaiah 14, Isaiah is using that language of that story to talk about Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and saying, in your arrogance, you'll be brought down.
Did you know that Saddam Hussein claimed that he was the descendant, the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar?
Was it Nebuchadnezzar or Nimrod?
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Saddam Hussein, he was trying to rebuild Babylon to its former glory.
But speaking of those kings, King Cyrus, who eventually sent the Israelites back to the land, back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, he was a Zoroastrian. He followed the teachings of the prophet Zoroaster. Zoroaster believed it was in Persia. It was one of the very first big monotheistic religions, to where I would say prior to the Babylonian exile, the theology of the Israelites was more of a henotheism, to where there's multiple gods, there's one God at a top. This God is the God of Israel, who we are only to worship. Mm-hmm. So within Zoroastrianism, and you'll see these influences that they had on like Judaism and Christianity. In Zoroastrianism, you have this prophet where he's preaching one God, Ahura Mazda was the name of the god. And he only, again, one God. There are other gods of other nations, but they were spoken to be of angels. They are angels, lesser beings. The nations, the gods of the world, they were angels. In this theology, when you die, there's a bridge that it leads to your fate. And as you cross the bridge, if you were righteous, the bridge widens. If you were wicked, the bridge narrows. Mm-hmm. In this, we had the idea of a Messiah who would, in the end times, he would come and he would raise the dead. There would be a resurrection. And Ahura Mazda had this evil lesser god who was in opposition to him, the archetypal Satan, and he had fallen angels. And so the Israelites come out of exile, sent back by Cyrus, who was a Zoroastrian. And from then on in the Old Testament books, you suddenly see, only in one book, the book of Daniel, you see the idea of a resurrection. Mm-hmm. You will find that nowhere else in the Old Testament. I'm open for correction. Maybe that sounds a little arrogant, but email peaceandtoodles@gmail.com if you can find otherwise.
So you know how in the Gospel of Judas, Jesus says that Judas isn't going to enter that house?
Yes.
Where's he going then? Because there's no reference to hell in that book, is there? Not that I remember.
So that would be going into the Gnostic view of hell. I do believe...
What's the Gnostic view of hell?
I have heard an interpretation that Judas's fate was actually he was going to be the god of hell. We are in hell, according to Gnostic.
I've heard that.
Which is an interesting take.
You know what, though? If this was hell...
There's no more hellish place.
If this was the bottom and as worse as it gets, I'd be all right.
I have wondered if this is purgatory, where we're having to be like purged of...
If you get reincarnated back into hell and this is it, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like hanging by your penis or something all by yourself and having demons stick you with box cutters while you're hanging there.
Yeah,
on fire.
It could be a lot worse.
Yeah,
certainly.
See, that's one thing.
You're in hell. You can fall in love. You can start a business. You can make friends. You can make music. You can reach for the stars.
For that reason, that's why I don't believe personally that this is hell, because it could be so much worse. Like if you think about
if the purpose of hell is intended for punishment alone, then this would make no sense of this being hell.
Right.
Yeah.
If hell is like a purgatory, a testing place, And hell is more like an element that you have to pass through to be purified or to be tested, to be strengthened. I can see that.
Yeah.
So is there a place then where souls go to get eternally tortured?
You're asking an agnostic, dog. I don't even know if we have souls.
I think on a biblical basis, there's not strong evidence that people are sent somewhere eternally to, like, be tortured.
I believe, so the garden, or the river, the lake of fire, that's speaking more of annihilation. And I believe what Jesus and his disciples after him taught and propagated was the annihilation of the souls. Because by Jesus' time, the soul within Jewish culture was definitely a construct at that point.
So that wouldn't be a place of torture. It'd be a place where you go to be destroyed and just cease to exist.
Yes, and that's the lake of fire. So their death was the end of their body. The lake of fire is the end of their souls. By the time... So I say this is just my opinion, and I'm willing to be challenged on it. Resurrection seemed to develop from Zoroastrianism. They seem to have that influence on Judaism in terms of the resurrection. And then for the concept of the soul, I believe they started to adopt that from Greek culture, in particularly like Plato. Because, yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that seems based.
Yes. Because Plato believed the soul is made of like a greater material than the body. The body, it was very Gnostic. This world, the body, it's defiled, it's corrupt.
Well, yeah, the body can rot.
Yes.
And then the soul's just sitting there like, dang
Yes.
it, the body's just freaking dead.
Yes. So the idea of the lake of fire, I believe, is it's not. What do you think, Steeley? Of your research?
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like I think maybe it was that I was listening to one of the. I think the newest one you guys are talking about, Elijah calling fire down.
Yes. Yeah.
On the altar.
Yes, and I think a lot of times you see throughout biblical fire is used for both judgment or purification. So I think the concept of Revelation and the lake of fire is kind of that destruction. Although what's still interesting is it's both like death and Hades being cast into it,
yes.
which I find interesting. Interesting verbiage.
So what are some other extra-biblical views of hell that you know of?
Let's see. I mean, like Isaiah was alluding to, annihilationism is kind of coming around. It's not coming around, but that's been...
Like it's getting more popular.
Yeah, I would say...
Making a comeback.
Yes, it seems like there's that and universalism, which is, I would say I fell in universalism as I was kind of deconstructing.
Okay.
Like, if I was going to subscribe to, pure Christianity, it would be universalism. So, everybody's...
Explain that.
So universalism would be the concept that everybody is reconciled to God after death, in the end times, or... Yeah.
Likewise, I don't have one that I subscribe to, but any of the ones that intrigue me are always ones that it's definitely not the idea of you see, or some people go to the good place and some people go to the bad place,
Yeah.
or cease to exist. I don't understand why. I think that comes from sectarian thinking of people as the other. God created the world for us. Then there's these piss-ons over here that, they have damnation is their inheritance. And I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me as to why a God would create some souls or some beings just to live a totally forsaken life,
Yeah, I think there was an interesting, I guess, maybe not purely outside biblical context of hell, but Calvinistic universalism, which is because everybody will be reconciled back to God. I think is it Romans that he references vessels of wrath? And so, if somebody does something terrible, that was actually God using them for some sort of, butterfly effect, greater good. But it got really weird because people would be like, oh yeah, that guy like killed his whole family, but that was what he was supposed to be doing. And I was I don't know how you're getting there, but that's pretty.
See, I think I could wrap my head around the reason why a god would create people just to destroy them. Like, as a spectacle. Look how powerful I am and what I can do. All these people, with a brush of my finger, with a snap of my finger, I can send them all to annihilation.
But when I think of those aspects of, like, personality, I relate that to our flesh, I believe that we, in some sense, evolved from a more beastly state. Mm-hmm. And that sectarian other thinking, us and them thinking, I think comes from that part in our evolution. I would think of a god or a being that has the mental, capabilities of running and creating an entire race and planet. I would think that they would be, if like the best human can be above those qualities, like I would think of a god being above that.
Maybe we're all doomed because we're all living in sin, as in when the angels came down on Mount Hermon to mate with the women, it says that they taught us how to make tools, how to craft medicines, how to do spells, how to do magic, and how to use a pen and a paper or a quill and whatever, chisel and stone. They taught us how to make records. And in that same book, it talks about how those things are sinful.
Well, no, I think the point of it was more so, previously in culture, people would attribute those traits of so-and-so is the god of this. They taught us this. And so that was a wide-held belief in cultures. But then we have, again, trying to monotheize the culture, and anything that was attributed to a god is now attributed to an angel. So I think that's why, because some of the things that the angels taught in Enoch aren't, bad things.
They're talked about as bad things.
Do you want to pull them up?
I think
if I could find the book of Enoch
they
somewhere,
were talked about as, forbidden knowledge, right? Or, that they weren't supposed to have that.
Which is confusing because it says there that Enoch was the scribe of God. What's a scribe do? He freaking writes things, right?
Yeah.
And yet Enoch himself, supposedly, that wrote the book, is using this forbidden knowledge of knowing how to record things so that you know the lesson of what is bad. It's like...
In the book of Enoch, what all did the fallen angels, teach people? Oh, it's not listening. In the book of Enoch, what all did the fallen angels teach people to do?
Let's see. According to the book of Enoch, the fallen angels, also known as the Watchers, taught humans various arts and sciences that ultimately led to corruption and wickedness. Some of the things they taught include metalwork, weaponry, sorcery, and cosmetics. Azazel, one of the leaders, is said to have instructed humans in the art of warfare and the manufacture of weapons. Other Watchers taught humans about enchantments, astrology, and divination. These teachings are seen as contributing to humanity's downfall and the increase in violence and immorality. The Book of Enoch highlights the consequences of these teachings and the eventual punishment of the Watchers.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, baby.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure to help. I hope you found the information useful. Do you have any more questions or...
That's enough of you.
I'm not trying to throw shade, but the one that sticks out to me is they taught them cosmology, makeup?
Cosmetics, yeah.
Yeah, no. But what would be interesting is, I think...
I found that specifically right here about that. It says, and Azazel taught men to make swords and knives, shields, breastplates, and ornaments, the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and of coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness. And then they sinned.
It's the makeup.
Summarizing what follows. And then it says they taught Armaros taught the resolving of enchantments, and some other guy taught. I just closed it. Armaros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakijal, astrology. Cockabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arakiel, the signs of the earth. Shamziel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Then it brings the good angels in.
You do see, like, earlier on in the Israelite culture, I feel like there was, like, kind of a distancing from eventually, like, interpreting the stars, reading the clouds, anything that would attribute to power other than God, like magic per se. Earlier on in the Old Testament, you would have, like, a prophet using, like, a object or something to perform a miracle. Later on, it was more like they just speak and God does it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So we've covered ideas of hell from a historical perspective. Now I would like to explore a variety of ideas of hell and also talk about hell kind of on a personal experience level, you know.
Have you been there?
No, in terms of
holding
like
out on
how we thought about it then and how we think about it now.
All right, well, you go first.
Well, in terms of introducing some different ideas of hell, I think like the idea of like reincarnation or purgatory to me makes a lot of sense. If you think of life as like the purpose of it is to grow, to learn, to move towards something greater. Reincarnation and purgatory make a lot of sense. You also, in some sense, to get a little bit far out or sci-fi, the idea of reincarnation kind of is in alignment with simulation theory.
Oh,
you know,
that's true.
Yeah. This existence, this reality that we're in, maybe is a simulation where it's like it's school basically. It's school for the soul. The soul being the conscious tie that leads to outside of this, right? Your conscious experience. Mm-hmm. And you have to put the soul through hell through the schooling to teach us something deeper, to the lessons that you garner from each life. It's like a grade in school.
Mm-hmm. According to simulation theory, there is no hell or heaven for that matter. If God was a supercomputer in his boredom in infinite space and time, blew himself up, and all the particles, the bits, if you will, just expanded, blew up. That's our Big Bang, right? And then all these little pieces of information, that's like you and me. And like we're just little blips of info, ones and zeros, positive, negative, as is the design, a duality to everything. Mm-hmm. Atoms, electrons, positive, negative, protons, neutrons. And everything's expanded, and then because of gravity, they say all matter is attracted to itself. Eventually, the universe is going to stop expanding. It's going to come back together. When you die, the bits, the information, your body is just transformed into earth, based like physical information because, your body's going to rot. It's going to become part of the earth again. And it's kind of like a universalism thinking because...
Destroyed, it's just changed.
Yeah, everything truly is connected. Mm-hmm. And when you die and eventually everything's sucked back together, you're just going to become part of this universal consciousness back in the whole. And someday, everything will be together in one again.
Even, like, outside of, like, that being, like, a computer or AI, like, that in a certain sense, like, in, we've talked about this before on other episodes, in Hinduism, the highest form of reality is Maya, where every bit of the universe is a god performing a drama. And humanity is just one small aspect of that drama, the segment of, the human drama. But everything in its vastness is God. That's...
So the alien drama is God?
Yep, all of it.
Crikey.
You had something you wanted to say, though?
When you were talking about, like, if you died or your matter would kind of go back out into the universe, I don't know who, like, Avi Loeb, which I know I sent Isaiah a video on, he had another one I listened to.
He's
and
a physicist?
Yeah, he's like crazy. He had like 2 PhDs by the time he was 24 in, like, I think astrophysics and but he was talking about
nonetheless.
yeah. In one of his videos, though, he was talking about matter and, like, if you wrote information down on a piece of paper and then you burnt the paper, like, in our perspective, that's destroyed or it's been lost. But he said, if I'm remembering correctly, hypothetically, he's saying if we had the technology, you could find all that matter that had dispersed and restructure it to then have that data again.
Like the particles of the carbon, the smoke.
Yes. So if you think about that in the sense of, like, once we die, it was the same thing. We decompose or we're burnt. But what if technology ascended to, like, well, but we could restructure or, like, anyway, that was like...
Yeah,
and maybe there is, like, a deeper... Maybe there's an element, like Plato talked about, there's, like, the soul is made of a greater matter. Maybe that there's something deeper within us that when our body dies away, it goes out and maybe comes back. Maybe. Who knows what the element of consciousness is.
It's like we exist in our 3 dimensions without being able to really comprehend more. Like, we get the concept of time linearly, but to actually exist in a 4th dimension would mean you could probably time travel, for lack of a better term for it. And then in a 5th dimension, who knows what's beyond that? Maybe instantaneous travel, physical, I don't know. And then upwards through the dimensions, take that, and we're existing in our 3 dimensions, like existing in 4, perceiving 3, and we make a video game, right? That's 2 dimensions on a screen. Like, it's existing in 2 dimensions. It's existing in 3 dimensions as far as what you see it, but as far as the program, it's 2. And then you can go down from there. We're capable of creating basically life in those dimensions. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how high does it go? If this is just a simulation, well, when your character dies, game over, restart, character's alive again.
Mm-hmm. Is it the same character?
Hard to tell. Yeah. Like, the information is in, like, if the computer processes and handles all the information, it's stored in there. The world that abides by whatever physics engine,
the coding,
yes, is like it abides by certain laws of whatever physics engine it's programmed to. Like us with our law of thermodynamics, law of the conservation of mass and energy, like stuff like that. We can't really break those rules. We can try and we can get close, and conspiracy theory circles, we can kind of break some of them, but we're still ultimately bound by the certain rules and laws of the universe. And if the law of attraction and some of the more mystical things are part of those laws, well, that would explain why they work. Law of, like, karma, reap what you sow, whatever you want to call it, what goes around comes around.
It's like part of the algorithm.
It's an undeniable truth that exists, even if we can't fully, like, comprehend how. Like, those NPCs in a video game are still bound by the certain laws, even though we that created the game aren't bound by those laws. Yeah. That's kind of how I always saw God, Are we in a simulation? Are we just existing in the mind of God as a thought? Are there multiple gods, and this is just one, and we're supposed to pray to the highest one, but it's just the highest one that created us, and there's others? Who knows?
Well, simulation would also, like, kind of like ambiomorphic gods that, like Zeus being big with, or they'd, like, have the head of an animal. That would make sense in the...
Okay, Toodles from the future here. We've experienced some recording problems, some technical difficulties, but we soon got them figured out, and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, All right, and we're back.
I said something about simulation, and you're like, and that kind of ties into Zeus.
We had some technical difficulties, but we're back on the road. Yeah, that ties into Zeus in the sense of like, like gods or architects coming into the simulation. They could, like the Egyptian gods, give themselves the head of a dog, and they're like these grand, giant beings, or like the angels in Ezekiel. It's like, if there were architects coming into this simulation creating like an avatar for them to play as, you'd totally pimp out your character. So, and then like the simulation in terms of like, if there was this AI who was like the brain of this game that we're in, decoding the brain behind the system, if you were in the system and had like cognitive awareness, you would perceive that the algorithms and the coding almost like spirit, like forces.
What if you could have memories of like an eternal existence before being put into the simulation, but because that existence is on dimensions outside of your perception here, that's why you can't remember it, because you're not able to with your five senses.
That would make sense of like certain things, like maybe art, where like it gives you this feeling of like, I've heard this before or I've seen this before. Maybe that's because art comes from outside the simulation, from the muse, right? And so you have this almost pre-existent sense of nostalgia about it.
Crikey.
Blimey.
Crikey, mate.
All right, well, I think that commences that part of the discussion on hell. Let's talk about hell now from like a more just kind of personal level, how it's affected us personally and how we see it today. Kind of
Let's start with you.
Deconstructionist spin on it. So hell for me, growing up, the idea of eternity was kind of, when I was real little and started thinking about it in the beginning, it was very overwhelming. Just the idea of it goes on and on and on and on, and what are you going to be doing?
Suffering and being tormented in a lake of fire and flames.
As a little kid, I assumed I was going to go to heaven. I hadn't done anything bad enough yet to...
Must have been a nice childhood.
Otherwise.
Dude, I was so terrified. Those Baptists will put the fear of hell inside you, bro.
Well, and based off my understanding of all of this from childhood, I think we all had a dash of religious OCD sprinkled onto our brains at a particular point.
You've got to turn to the Lord of the Old Testament. You need to repent, get on your knees, and pray to Him so you don't suffer the eternal fires of hell.
Was that your experience in the Baptist church?
Well, I went to a nice little one that they would more subtly put the indoctrinated fear of hell into you. They didn't sit there and slam Bibles on the back of the pew in front of you.
No theatrics.
They didn't whip you when you fell asleep.
I know, like, there was a point in my childhood where, or not so much my childhood, more like early teens, when I really started taking the religion stuff seriously. I'd be praying, and I'd feel like I have to take my hat off because you can't pray with your head. There's just certain things, like I felt like I had to do things this way, or all hell's gonna break loose, or punishment, or God will be displeased with me. Kind of, there was a certain point where it was like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna find out. It's kind of just testing the validity of my fears, which they're invalid.
That was, I can't remember exactly who in Heaven and Hell History of the Afterlife. He references, I want to say it was Socrates, but I don't know for certain, where he just talks about like the worst case of your existence is like you fall into a slumber.
Yeah.
I was like,
that was Socrates. Yeah.
I was like, I can.
That's not the worst case.
No, I was like, there was two like interesting points. When I thought of it like that, I was like, all right, the worst case, then I really don't have to fear death. Although I will say, the thought of, somebody made the point also your worst case would be like you don't remember being here before you were born, so that's what maybe death is as well. And I was like, so I like my consciousness just turns off, and that like actually is almost scarier than
what, really?
Well,
because you don't know the difference.
Well, because like here I think it's the human attachment though of like now I only fear dying young because I have like people I care about.
Wife and kids.
Yeah, like I know that, and at least for my beliefs, like I'm not worried about the other side, but knowing that they have to exist in that, like, not me being here, that's hell.
That would,
no.
Yeah, well, no, that would create a certain hell in a certain sense.
Yeah, there's a band I like, the Acacia Strain. They're like, and he has like a lyric in there that it's like, I believe hell is real, hell is other people.
Yeah,
like you could also say like inflicting. Sorry, tangent.
No. This is a place where tangents are welcomed.
I was gonna say, like, for me growing up, it was similar to what Isaiah was talking about. I was given kind of the ultimatum of choosing either you're gonna go to hell if you're not saved, and it was like my parents are like, we can't choose that for you, so it has to be a decision you make. So I like shortly after that, I was like saved. But yeah, then. As I got older, that's where I started having, I guess, moral quandaries with hell. And it was people being like, the disagreements and then being like, well, your theology is wrong, so you're going to hell. And I was like, that's a pretty bold, like, stance to just be like, well, I get to, cast that judgment on you.
Yeah, right.
And also just hearing people be like, yeah, there's people I really wish weren't going to be in hell, but unfortunately that's not true. And I was like...
Almost like a guilt manipulation tactic.
Yeah, for sure. And my quandary with that was, like, I believe if we were created from a creator that's love, then what we can fathom as love on here shouldn't be deceptive. And so what I mean by that is, like, some people would pitch it as, well, the devil is going to plant thoughts in your mind to, like, talk you out of your faith. That's what I heard a lot was...
Is it from God or is it from there's so much of that you have to sort through?
Yeah, it was like, be careful how you could talk yourself out of faith. And I was like, well, but if God gave me intelligence, you mean like my intelligence is from the devil to deceive me and end up in hell? I was like, that seems like a really trippy stretch. And that's what made me start going on the rabbit trails of like, you get some real dilemmas too when you paint yourself into certain corners, I guess.
And then, like, the concept of hell from, like, a Judeo-Christian standpoint of, like, say, it's the stereotypical view of hell, eternal punishment, and it's the orthodox stance that because you didn't believe in the gospel message. That, to me, creates, like, a way less merciful God. It's like, but God, you're being sent to hell, but God, I tried to help people. I tried to take care of people. I tried to be a good person. You didn't believe the story.
That was exactly...
If you don't find... Like, it's not my fault I believe 4 + 4 is 8, Right. If you don't find something believable, I don't know if that's within your control.
That was personally one of my quandaries. It was like... I'm using that word a lot. But it was... Okay. There was a book...
I say certainly a lot.
I don't remember the name of the book. The basis was that we should all be going out as missionaries because anybody who doesn't hear the gospel is going to hell.
Is that Francis Chan?
No, it's something like Refining Fire or I don't know. The irony is the guy who wrote it was like preaching that you should be poor and stuff, but then he got busted for having like multi-million-dollar houses and it's not. Anyway, but I was like,
well, how do you become poor from giving all your money away?
My problem was, again, coming like, I'm not saying I'm the world's smartest person, but I think intellect, and if I have, I'll put it like this, like especially after I had kids, I've thought, even if my son became a rampant serial killer and then was whatever, let's say he was executed by the state, I still would not wish that he's going to now go to the other side of eternity and forever be tormented.
Right.
And if my love for him, which is human level, not even God level, can think like that, then how could a God encompassing love not think that?
Well, and
That
then
is exactly my thoughts on it too. Like, even I could hate somebody and not wish hell on them.
Yeah.
Like, I literally don't wish that idea of hell on anybody.
Right.
Like, how could I?
what are the circumstances that create a serial killer to begin with?
That's one of my other ones.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, humans are so quick to throw out. I don't want to
Domino
get too.
effect of experience.
Yes, I was gonna say I don't want to go too dark, but you have like Dahmer or somebody like that who had incredibly horrific childhoods. Like, we as humans don't understand trains of trauma that could trickle to that. So again, I would rather think in a God that's so empathetic to be like, man, kid, I know you messed up, but you're on the other side now, and I can purify or refine, but I'm not going to just destroy you or burn or, for God's sakes, torment you.
Yeah. A vengeful God creates this image like, if there's a need for a trash bin, then in a certain sense that it creates a picture of a faulty craftsman. If the craftsman needs to throw his creations away.
You know, the show Supernatural, their perspective of God is he's a writer, and he writes multiple books. And if he likes the books, like, all the books are like different realities. Like, he writes a story, and that exists. And then he writes another book, and that one exists. And he has the power to go into all of these worlds that he creates and interact with them. The problem is it's only one at a time, because it's like a library to him. And obviously he's in the reality the show centers around, but he says, like, this is my favorite. Like, if I didn't like it, I'd either put it on the shelf or throw it away and destroy it, and everything here would cease to exist. And it's like, well, I kind of like to think of it like, okay, like Dahmer, or anybody that goes through the cycle of trauma, and it's just the sequence of events they have to go through. That, not to say it's not their fault that they did what they did, but it's like equal parts their decisions and their history.
Yeah.
And okay, a more comfortable way to think of it, even though I'm not going to say it's right. But let's say you die and you go before God in heaven. He's like, look, there's heaven and there's hell. And you didn't choose to believe in Jesus, so you're going to go to hell.
But again, is a belief your choice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even hear about him.
Yeah.
Like, how... Like, I would have chosen had I heard.
But what if you're a totally sensible, totally kind person? You told that story, but because you don't have the biases that maybe sometimes lead to a person believing that, what do you do then?
Or the other way to think of it that I was getting to was like, okay, what if that same situation happens? You're standing before God, and he's like, heaven and hell are your options, and you are definitely doomed to hell because of what you've done. However, look at the sacrifice that I made for you through Jesus. Do you want to accept that sacrifice? And you get a decision then. I think that is more loving than sending the person that, because of somebody else's actions, like, okay, this person that didn't preach to a guy when he should have, this dude's blood is on his hands, but you're telling me that this guy is going to still go to hell that didn't get preached to just for that reason? And it's the same hell. Like, this guy that didn't preach to him is going to go to the same hell and get the same punishment. Shouldn't his punishment be more severe because it's his fault that not just himself but two people are there?
Well, and then the basis of that as well, about him needing to come and sacrifice himself to himself to turn away his vengeance.
That's another weird part of it.
Hell. It's like you could have just changed.
Exactly. Yes.
There's not the need of all that.
Jesus is your son, and it makes sense. Like, this is my only begotten son. I love him, and I'm going to send him to die for you. Is that really that loving of a gesture of sacrifice if you know ahead of time that, okay, he's going to go to Hades 3 days and come right back to me?
Well, and then if
that's not a sacrifice.
If you're going on from the basis that he's God in the flesh, which I personally don't think was a biblical concept, but nonetheless, that's the narrative standard for the most part. He's coming here to die as a sacrifice to himself to turn his anger away from us so we don't have to go to hell, the hell that he allowed to be created. And
where's his anger going? Onto Jesus to let him die in the flesh, just to go right the frick
himself?
Right.
Right.
It's like somebody.
And even then, if that's the sacrifice, dying on a cross still isn't as bad as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So then the idea of reincarnation and hell just being the constant refining of the soul that you have to go through in life, that makes way more sense. I'm not saying I believe that, but in terms of intriguing beliefs about the afterlife, or ones that make sense, that makes way more sense to me.
Yeah, that was one of the other things. It was somebody made the argument once to, again, kind of coming back to the kids thing, but you could do it wife or whatever. If like my kid comes to me in the morning and I'm like, all right, son, you can have either your favorite cereal or you can have a bowl of gasoline with glass chips in it. Well, I've given him really only one option.
Yeah.
But I'm also setting this other one up as like, but if you don't pick the one, that's all you're getting. And it's like, who's the psychopath? No, like
yeah,
that's,
why would you put that option?
Unless,
why?
Let me try to challenge that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Unless let's say your child is not healthy and he needs to eat this food to be healthy because it's what's good for him.
Yeah.
So you give him options of, okay, it's this or nothing. You're going to choose nothing. So instead of that, we're going to make it eat this food or the gasoline with glass chips. Because it's ultimately not to scare him for propaganda's sake or fear-mongering's sake, but it's just to make sure that he chooses what's good for him.
I get that argument. I think if I'm omnipotent, I could also be like, this is all you're getting.
I'm not a father.
But I guess that would be to speculate at the same time. Perhaps hell doesn't exist, and it's just a option that we're given to make sure that we choose the right thing.
That is fair.
I'm not a father like either of you two are, but when and if I ever am, I don't think I would ever put glass and gas in a bowl in front of my baby to begin with, you know?
Well, neither would I, bro. I'd set it on fire first.
Forever. No.
Light it and then scoop it and rub him. What do you think of that? Is it really tasty?
Shove his face in it.
But
just kidding. I love children, but
not
in the creepy
we're
Catholic
using
way.
Extremisms. That's one of my favorite things. Extremisms.
that's me as a flawed human, a flawed man with my imperfections, but there being, mercy and grace towards my kid or hypothetical kid.
Well, and I will circle back to something interesting, which did want to share that I found intriguing. I think is it Mark's parable with the sheep and the goats? And they're talked about
Matthew.
I always get those two confused because I think Mark talks about destroying of the body.
It's Matthew 24.
Yeah, I think
the sheep and the goats.
Yes. If you go through that whole list, also interestingly,
I think I see where you're going.
Okay, so he makes this whole parable, and he doesn't point out, but also believing in Jesus will keep you from being cast out into the outer darkness. It was
charity.
Doing good unto other people. So
I was naked and you clothed me. I was thirsty and you gave me water. I was hungry and you gave me food.
And one of my problems with that was people were like, you can be a good person and still end up in hell. And I was like, but okay, so think of it like this. Most people would say when you're saved, it's like you're having a renewing of mind or spirit, right? Body, and you're trying to cast off sin. So if somebody, I know people who are atheists that live arguably probably better than me. So if they're doing all that, so they're doing, quote unquote, what the renewing of the mind or body would be like.
Fruits of the Spirit.
Yes, they're doing unto others. They're charitable. They're not trying to go out of their way to do things wrong.
Living like Jesus.
That's, again, a real slap in the face to be like, okay, so the literal only thing is utterance of Jesus to be saved. But if you don't do that, though, you're going to hell, even though you lived an identical life.
And that's not even what Jesus, Jesus, especially in the Synoptic Gospels, the earlier Gospels, the Gospels earlier than the book of John, the Gospel of John, Jesus' message on how to not receive the annihilation and to be resurrected was a lifestyle. when the rich man in Mark 10 says, Jesus, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus says, keep the Torah, or keep the law. And he says, I've done all this from my youth. And he says, you lack one thing. Sell everything you have and follow me. In the gospel, or not the gospel, in the parable of the sheep and the goats, he says, I was naked and you did not clothe me. I was thirsty and you did not give me water. And they say, Lord, Lord, when did we ever see you? And he said, when you saw one of the least of these and you didn't do unto them, you did that to me. All throughout Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus puts an emphasis in terms of your lifestyle. That comes from Paul. It's a Pauline. That's a
what
Pauline
those
thought.
parables don't include, or the rich young ruler and when the disciples are asking, when did we not see you and clothe you? Those leave out saving faith in Jesus for forgiveness of sins.
You don't see that in any of the Gospels until Gospel of John, which was written years later than the other Gospels. Like, we're talking 90 A.D.
Crikey.
Almost the end of the first century.
I didn't know that.
And you can see that. Just anybody who wants to test what I'm saying, you can either go with the gospel. I'd go with the Gospel of Mark because that's believed to be the oldest gospel in our canon. Take the Gospel of Mark, take the Gospel of John. Maybe they're both like relatively 14. I think John's a little longer. Just go through them and write down all the differences that you see in what Jesus generally talks about and teaches. And then email us at peaceandtoodles@gmail.com and tell me how many differences you notice.
I have to ask this question.
Okay.
If salvation is not through like a momentary belief in Jesus and praying for the forgiveness of your sins, but rather a lifestyle change.
Talking about in terms of what Jesus taught.
Or even Gnostically, the pursuit of this knowledge.
Gnosis.
Then how would you explain these salvation experiences of Christians who do pray and in a moment, bam, the veil has been lifted, they're saved, praise the Lord, I feel so different and restored, the weight has been lifted. Are they brainwashing themselves?
Personally, I don't.
Is it real?
I don't. So though I have these opinions about the narrative, or rather, the narrative from the beginning of the Bible to Revelation, them being vastly different. I don't doubt an individual's religious experience, their personal experience, the spiritual experience. Personally, this is just my opinion, but God, whatever that is, I would like to think that, like Psalm 53, I believe it is, it says, the broken spirit
in a contrite heart
are the sacrifices of God. God will always hear the prayers of a broken spirit and a contrite heart. So I'd like to think when an individual truly seeks, it's the glory of God to conceal a matter and the glory of the King to search it out. When an individual truly seeks with true yearning, I think God, whatever God is, I would like to think they meet that individual where they're at. Christianity is just the conduit, the scope to where the individual is aiming themselves towards the sublime. The sublime maybe perhaps meets us when we open ourselves up. Like there's this idea in Judaism. Before the beginning of a service in the synagogue, they go around the assembly holding the Torah scrolls to their chest, dancing around the assembly. And one time, there's a story where one time the student asks the rabbi, Rabbi, why do we hold the Torah over our hearts, over our chest before we start service? And the rabbi said, because when your heart breaks, the truth will fall through the cracks. And I would like to think that's when we, these experiences, I think I attribute that to an individual pointing themselves sincerely towards something higher, seeking. That's my takeaway.
I have this song called Eternity that one of the verses, maybe I'll plug that at the end of this episode, actually.
That would be a good
song.
one, yeah.
Some of the lines in the last verse are, I've prayed that prayer of faith probably dozens of times, always sincere, but none of the times. Makes me feel different or loved or alive. So what's it going to take, a couple hundred more nights of... I forgot it. A couple hundred more nights of me having to go through my life in fear of death if I don't do it right and pretend that I hold to a light when all I see is darkness with no proof in sight.
I like that.
It's like,
It's very good.
like, what about that in my case, where I have prayed that prayer sincerely, many times, wanting that peace and wanting that freedom, so I don't have to personally fear death, but not feeling any different, even though I've literally been on my face on the floor in tears, crying, going through all the confessing of sins, Jesus is Lord, changed my life, changed my heart, I want to feel different, give me something and nothing. What about that? Am I saved?
In terms of, I don't
Let's
have,
get deep here.
I don't have the same scope in which I view being saved as I used to.
I know you don't. I'm
I-
still holding on to that
When I
traditional, non-denominational
when I-
belief, I guess, the Protestant belief.
Yeah,
with
when
that.
I think of, sorry.
I'm done.
When I think of save, I just don't use that word in my thinking, really.
Well, even if it is a placebo and you're brainwashing yourself, why can't I freaking do it to myself?
I think I don't know if I'll be able to tie this cleanly because I've been reading one of Kierkegaard's books, The Sickness Unto Death, which is making my head hurt because he is like 4 sentences is like making the point. Anyway, he talks about like despair being what each person wrestles with, though, and that being the sickness unto death. So that's like sometimes it makes me think of that too, of like, which that's where I'm reading more on like existentialism.
Yep.
Of kind of that feeling of like alienation or like what's going on. Yeah, alienation. No,
Being ostracized.
yes,
Spiritually.
yeah, which is where I found myself a lot. Which I'm not trying to I'm not like I was saying. It came at a timely point because I was like, oh, I feel all this. Like I feel like I don't connect. But okay, sorry. So one of his points though is you have the despair of living a life that you wish you were living, or that you're having despair living the life that you know you should be, but you aren't. So, like, sometimes I think just despair in general, you're going to experience either way. Like, and his point is that doesn't take away, because he's writing from a Christian standpoint. So, he's saying despair of that doesn't take away from your experience, in his opinion. He says that's something everybody's going to live with either way, pretty much. I don't know if that...
I see where he's coming from. Like, you explained it well. I'm just saying, if you never had that saving experience in the first place, like how people, another verse of the song, I'm saying, like, if you can't point back to a moment in, like, preachers will say, if you don't point back to a moment in time,
Where you know
this
you were
day,
saved.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think... Sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah. Go ahead. Were you
I don't
gonna
know
say
what I
something?
was going to say.
Okay.
No, I'm still thinking it.
If you
Well,
can't point back to the moment when you turn on your knees,
That's
then
one
you're
way
not part of a
that-
church that believes.
See, and this is something that led me away from, one of the things that led me away from religion is talking with individuals from Judaism, Islam, varying beliefs about Jesus, but they all had the same hope, they all had the same fire, they all had the same desire that they were pointing towards. Where was I going to go with that?
Good question.
I mean, they're all pointing towards that, like, higher being or a higher sense of...
Oh, yeah, I remember now. So, like, a preacher's looking at it through that scope, right? But there's people that have a wide variety of life philosophies that aren't even connected to Jesus, that they also claim to have the fire and the passion for whatever it is they believe in. And I saw that with other people outside of faith. And so, like in Judaism, there's not this idea of, like, in the Old Testament, there's not this idea of being saved, having a born-again experience. It's teshuvah, which that's the Hebrew word for repentance, which means to do a 180. So that's another way to look at it, is an individual could ask themselves, when did my aim change? That would probably be how I look at it. And I'm not basing it all from the Old Testament, but it's like, when was my aim pointed at a better thing, you know, my direction. That was directing myself, my thoughts, my energy. That could be another way to look at quote unquote being saved. That's not through a lens of, you know, Judeo-Christian thinking, but you know, there's a variety of life philosophies you could plug that into. Judaism's just one of them, but it's not. Sure, there's a particular time to where maybe you could say this is when I did my 180, and this is where I started aiming myself towards better things. But and maybe that's how I would perceive like salvation, being saved is. It's about where you point yourself, where you aim yourself, what you do.
Maybe I just need to sell my house and my car and motorcycle and boats and everything, give it away, and then
maybe this doesn't line up what I'm about to say. But I think oftentimes, and I don't think this is how it should be, but oftentimes we see God through the scope of like how we viewed our parents influences how we see God, right? Mom, Dad, I love you. You're just kids that grew up and had kids. So what I'm about to say about childhood, it's not done from like a stance of being malice, but my mom was very overbearing, and my dad, he was more so silent and avoidant, right? And I think we in particularly view God through the lens of our father, right? So I know that I remember the day that I stopped praying. I was praying and I was praying. There's something I was asking God for. And I didn't. He felt silent, and it wasn't until just recently that the reason that bothered me so much is because I associated the silence with the avoidance and perhaps neglect experienced so much as a kid that this is just a continuation of that through God, you know. Nowadays I don't see the sublime as so silent, but also I think sometimes we got to let go of how we see God, and maybe it's not even so much us being cognitive of it, but let God reshape our perception of whatever God is. You know, through me, what made me start thinking about, I just felt like praying more, felt like learning about God through a variety of scopes and lenses, ideas. I just had that in me, and I wanted, there was a variety of things that led to that, back to that, but what really started to reshape, get me thinking about God again in a lot of ways was art. The beauty of it, you know, how it makes us want to dance, laugh, sing. It's such a shifter of emotions, right?
Frolic in the fields with David.
And music's just one aspect, but it's almost like out of this world. And I don't know, when I started seeing God in the music and in the art, I started seeing him in like a sunset. It'd be weird. There'd be days where like I'd be basically having a wrestling match with my anxiety all day long, and then when I would see the sunset or the sunrise, it was like there's this rejuvenating feeling about it. It'd take my anxiety away. That's why I have a sun tattoo on the back of my neck, because the back of my neck, that's the place I feel the tension and the anxiety, right? Mm-hmm. And the sunset would take that feeling away. And maybe that sounds too hippy-dippy, too wooey-wooey, but so I put a picture of what brought me peace on the back of my neck, where I would feel my lack of peace, my anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, like, in a similar... like Isaiah and I talked, it's weird, like, I fall more on, like, I think sometimes agnostic deist. Like, honestly, sometimes I don't even know how I feel. You know what I mean?
You're
like
a stranger.
Yeah, I don't, and maybe
In a
that's
strange world.
yes. So I'm like, I don't know. I almost tell everybody like I don't know anything. I don't know anything about the afterlife, so I definitely don't. I mean, like
Certainly intrigued by it.
yeah, I don't. I definitely. I guess one of my big beefs was like seeing people live under religious oppression, thinking that if they didn't do all these things, because I have personal people in my life still that are living that way.
Yeah.
And I'm in my brain, I also go to the thing of like, what if this is our only shot? And if that's the case, wouldn't we want to maximize it?
Yeah.
And then to think that I know people who are they're holding on to something that could potentially not be true, and then they've lived their whole life sort of in oppression, thinking it's going to be better on the other side. And I guess they won't know either way. But
I think it was Nietzsche.
Oh,
he had a huge issue with that.
Right, because he was very pessimistic, right? Is that Arthur?
Nietzsche.
No, I'm thinking of I can't say it. He was super pessimistic. There's a shirt I almost wore. It's like, "This is my happy face," and it's like he's very like.
Nietzsche, like, verses were "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." When they strike you on one cheek, give them the other. Nietzsche saw Christianity as a very pacifying religion. It taught people to live lives in basic, quiet desperation.
Because he was like famous for God is dead, right?
God is dead, yeah.
Yeah.
He was more of a fan, from my observation, he was more of a fan of the God of the Old Testament. He thought that God makes more sense in a world like we live
very
in.
angry.
Yes. The idea of a God of the Geppetto type God of the New Testament, that doesn't make sense. You know, maybe it makes sense to in our world where we're so insaturated with comfort, right? To where we attribute that to be a natural part of reality, but Nietzsche didn't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say my experience was very similar to yours, especially with like the strong religion we had. All the time I felt like oppressed, even though I was supposed to be happy, or like same thing. Like I can think of, like I said, I can remember the first time I ever asked my parents to be like saved. That's ingrained in my mind. I was only like 7 though, so I don't really know that I had that sort of epiphany. Whereas like I can see my parents hold so strongly because they came from like a gruffer lifestyle, you could say, and had that sort of. So yeah, I don't feel like I ever struggled with that. Where I struggled with always thinking similarly though, well, am I not saved anymore because I've been doing this same thing over and over and over, or
yeah, when there wasn't even that first moment where it felt different. I was like, well, I need to be saved so I don't go to hell.
Right.
And then as time went on, I was like, well, I don't feel any different, so am I?
Maybe this is TMI, but I felt like I was going to go to hell every time after I masturbated. So throughout the age of like 14 to 19, I only did that 4 times. Which I thought was like normal.
That's actually impressive.
I thought that was normal.
Were you angry a lot?
Guinness Book of World Records on the phone.
Frustrated a lot?
Mostly sad all the time because I was
always lusting and like.
And that made me sad because I was guilty because like. Well, one example is like. You know, I was told to look at girls as a sister in the Lord, and so because I certainly wasn't thinking of her in that way, I felt like, yeah, I'm doing something wrong to her. You know, my sister in the Lord, not at all. I'm talking about, you know,
they know
no blood relation,
right?
Just so we're clear about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had like 13 years of like pornography addiction. Same thing. It was like all the time. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die tonight and I'm gonna go to hell. And it's like
probably go blind.
Yeah, it's like
you masturbate and then like instantly you're praying like,
yeah.
I don't know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Create it. No, it was. Yeah, I would. And then
that's what I would do too.
Yeah, I would.
I was gonna say that's like, if anything, that's become, I want to say like my mission, but I feel so I don't know enough with Kierkegaard still, but how it was relating to me was mostly his point of feeling like you're not living a life you're supposed to be.
Yes.
And in my introspective space, or like time after I came out of a strong breakup, I realized I was living my life for other people. And I realized that's why I was constantly in subconscious stress. So I guess my mission is, in a way, as I come across people, to be like, you know, like I talk with my wife. And to me, the creator is love, and we should be loving. And that goes to kind of a universal basis of, if this is the only shot we get at life, those principles are still going to get you the farthest. Like, if you're a rampant murderer, they're going to find you and get you. But if you try and be loving to everybody, you have a better, just on almost like a evolutionary basis, I guess you could say.
And the Christian will tell you, it doesn't matter how you live your life.
And like, to me, seeing people burdened by that breaks my heart, because again, I have people very close to me still like that. Like, I mean, the same person that's given a grievous offense to Isaiah has to me as well, where that was also one of my bones. You know, it was like they told me I was going to hell, and I was like, well, do you even know what you're talking about? And so I started researching it, and I was like, we are like so deceived in our conceptualization of it. And the last thing on that is, like, strongly our visualization of hell is heavily influenced from like Renaissance art and Catholicism.
Dante's Inferno.
Yes, massive on, like, you know, demons poking you and spit roasting you.
If it was true, though, if there is a single heaven and a single hell, and we're on a choosing path right now, then I would agree with that. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're safe, because it doesn't, like, you could be the Pope himself and make orphanages for billions of children, but if you're ultimately going to go to the hell, as our stereotypical Christianity defines it, well, yeah, dude, it's not worth what you did, because who cares?
Right. I don't go to like a nihilistic extreme of just like nothing matters, because I think that's also, you know, it's not fair to say, well, again, it goes back, I guess my moral code is like still doing unto others, because if this is my one shot at life, I wouldn't want somebody to murder me, you know, because that's quickly ending my one experience I could potentially. So same thing. It's like, it doesn't just negate like sin. It's just like, I guess it's negating the eternal torment aspect.
I would say that was a big part of my deconstruction as well, is emphasizing that this is our experience, and this, for all we know, is once in a lifetime. It's one life. And to kind of take hold of that and not live life in quiet desperation, not repress myself like I saw so many adults do growing up, and rather that be ambitions, desires. You know, there's healthy desires and there's unhealthy desires. And I think, you know, we got to sort through that, because that, in the bottom of that, is how to live the good life. I would say where I've came to now with, like, I guess to my personal life philosophy from deconstructing, I see hell and heaven more so like a conscious state that you live in, reflective of how you think and how you act. So an example of hell would be, I'm lying, I'm stealing, I don't have an aim, like I'm not inspired. Like, you reference God in terms of like deep love. I kind of associate God with like deep inspiration. So if I were to miss the mark in what I do, think there's things that we're supposed to do. You know, everybody has the best way they could be inspired. So if I were to lose sight of what's the best thing that I could aim for, and I were to live my life for the pleasures of the flesh, just chasing after pleasure, lying, not creating a life that brings a sense of like short-term comfort but not long-term peace. This being in, I've imagined as a byproduct of that, a lot of feelings that would come with that would be bitterness, lack of trust, fear. You know, because if you're lying and if you're being deceitful, if you're stealing, that it doesn't create a safe haven for your conscious experience. You know, you're going to be anxiety filled and whatnot. And so I associate heaven with it's kind of like nirvana, and like if you look at nirvana in like a naturalist sense of that, like there's different levels of nirvana within Buddhism. or different ways to interpret it, but like more naturalist Buddhists who kind of strip away the spirituality from it is like it's a conscious state you reach of being present and kind of living in the present, taking full grasp of that, and not identifying the things you need to let go of, and living life with a mind free of those strings. I kind of see heaven through that sense of like we can create a lifestyle that brings a heavenly state of mind for us and a heavenly abode for other people to live in. Even if that's just a small circle of friends that we interact with.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
All right. So if that is it of that, does anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
If that is it of that.
That is it. All right. We have our last segment of the show, musical recommendations.
Oh, yeah. Shoot, I forgot we're doing that now.
How long of an episode is this, by the way?
This one's going to be a two-parter because we're at 2 hours.
All right. What's, after we get done recording this, pre-recording, just an intro to the two-parter? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And an outro to the first one.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Got you.
All right, so musical recommendations.
Recommendations. Well, we got a guest. So what have you been listening to lately? What would you recommend people checking out of any genre?
You need to expect this. I told
any
you.
decade.
Okay. I've been on an extreme obsessive kick with Frank Moody. They're a modern day duo from I think like London, but they do very like funk, amazing bass lines, but they also have like synth in there and guitar parts and harmony. They just blow my mind all the time. I totally get lost listening to them.
Right on. All right. Any particular song you'd recommend by them?
Into the Ether.
All right. Into the Ether.
Into the Ether. Sounds mysterious.
What about you, Toodles?
Me? Nate Vizen. It's my favorite.
All right. Check out Nate Vizen.
The song Eternity. Yeah. Still
Yeah?
think we might stick that on the end of this episode.
I think
So-
so.
It just fits so well.
Yes.
But no, okay, for real. Lately I've been listening to so much like pathetic comedy songs that are absolute garbage to actually listen to. It's just good for like once. Oh man, okay, so it's country, guitars in it, gives me ZZ Top vibes. The songs are terribly perverted, dirty, and hilarious. So if you
Who
don't,
is it?
it is not family friendly. It's not safe for work, but it is perfect for a laugh and disgust. It's Wheeler Walker Jr.
Oh, yeah, you should be him. Mine, I'm going to keep it within the vein of hell. So my recommendation would be A Conversation with the Devil by Ray Wiley Hubbard. And another recommendation, kind of along those lines, would be the band Murdered by Death. I'm not even going to tell you what genre they are, because I'm sure there's
You
some
can probably
that are coming to your mind right now. They are not the genre that you think they are. It's going to be something completely different.
Yeah.
Check out their song Spring Break. I can't remember the name of that song, so I'm going to recommend another one by them. Lost River by Murder by Death. Check it out. On anywhere where there's music. I listen to them typically on Spotify. You pulling something up on your phone?
You gotta listen. Gotta listen to the song "Sniffers Row."
Sniffers Row.
Sniffers Row by Wheeler Walker Jr.
All right. You might regret doing that. Who knows? I haven't listened to it. So.
Drugs and strip clubs.
All right. Very, very, well, you do that, you're probably going to go to hell. At least in terms of some religions.
Just listen to some Jeremy Camp. It's like, never mind.
Don't listen to what is it, Newsboys now? They had the whole Michael Tate scandal.
Tate, dog.
Oh man,
Man.
What happened with them?
What a scandal.
Like a lot of
Newsboys lead singer.
Sexual abuse?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Of young men, sexual abuse, and an abuse of cocaine and alcohol while on the road. However, he did issue a very large apology that sounds sincere.
I didn't like the cocaine. I just liked how it smelled.
It does sound sincere, but like I was telling one of my friends that when we were talking about it, like it sounds like he's saying the right things. But you know what? I could have wrote that apology for him and worded exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So is it sincere? Time will tell. He said he's seeking help, and he's doing better. He's been clean for a while, so...
That's good.
It is very good, indeed. All right, well, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you all for joining us once again. Thank you for traversing through hell with us, with Isaiah and Jonathan and Mr. Steeley Sawyer.
If You're Going Through Hell by Rodney Atkins.
Yes.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
Last
good
track on the same titled album.
Yep.
That's a good one.
All right.
That's actually a good song to listen to.
Excuse me.
But it's...
Until next time, let's keep traversing this strange world with curiosity and inquisitiveness.
And elegance.
And elegance and some swag sprinkled in there.
Yes.
Got anything to add to that, Stilly?
That sounds about right. Traverse with humility?
Humility, that's a very good one.
Yes, humility.
Yes. And let's remember to be neighborly towards everybody, because at the end of the day, we're all just strangers in a strange land.
Humility.
Yes. Until next time, I've been Peace.
Toodles.
Steel. No.
Stilly.
I forgot. No.
Toodles from the future again. As promised, here's a clip of the verse I talked about in Nate Vizen's new song, Eternity. If you want to hear the full version once it gets released, because this is a podcast exclusive, just go to Nate Vizen wherever you listen to music. And you might not find this one yet, but you'll find some other goodies. Till next time. In light of eternity, God, don't let me die alone or punish me for what I don't know. I prayed that prayer of faith probably dozens of times, always sincere, but none of the tries made me feel different or loved or alive. So what's it gonna take? A couple hundred more nights of wondering if I have to go through my life and fear a death if I don't do it right, and pretend that I hold to a light when all I see is darkness with no proof in sight. I'm tired of the years where I feel I'm not worth it, tired of the tears and the fear and the searching, tired of my ears trying to hear a God's purpose, tired of being here when it's clear I'm not learning. The more I know there's more I don't. I just want some answers for my soul that's torn and broke. Restore my hope, please Lord, make whole my tortured soul before I go. How much longer can I go without the truth I need to know? Depression and fear closing in, stuck in a loop, here I go again. I see the dark, I see the light, I have to know what I choose is right, 'cause it's not worth it to live life to find you were wrong when you die. I wanna do what's best for me in light of eternity. God, don't let me die alone or punish me for what I don't know. Nate Vizen, and where you listen to music.
Check out the link in the show notes.
If you would like to contact us, email us at peaceandtoodles@gmail.com. Until next time, salutations, my fellow strangers.
What will they think of next?